Seriously, this is one of the most frustrating conversations I've watched in a while. Hello, good people. It is Todd Shannon, data scientist, social commentator, getter of buckets. And today we are going to have a look-see at a conversation that the officer Tatum had with a young man on a college campus. Brandon Tatum apparently does these stints with Turning Point USA. They go in, they talk to college campus students. I guess maybe like a change my mind type of thing. Most of the time they just end up arguing, and they get a viral clip when somebody owns one of the libs or something like that. But this conversation was actually pretty frustrating to watch. It was pretty clear that the gentleman that Brandon Tatum was talking to was not listening. And I think he ended up making a case that was completely antithetical, which to whatever he believes, which I'm sure is antithetical to what he believes, which is the case for white supremacy. Although I don't think he meant to make that case, but I'm going to let you watch it with me. We'll watch it together, and then I will weigh in because it's a subtle case for white supremacy, and I think, obviously, like I mentioned, unintentional. Let's get started.
I want you to tell me exactly the point in history where America was great.
So Brandon Tatum is apparently wearing a MAGA hat. Looks like it's a black MAGA hat. Normally it's red, but anyway, that's the basis of his question. When was America great?
It's funny. Point to me a time in history where America wasn't great. Tell me where it
The birth
started.
of America?
No, point in America
this
where
country
America
was
wasn't great.
built on murder and thievery and deception. What do you mean?
Now let me explain this to you real quick. This is for everybody to listen to. Everybody always have this perception that we shouldn't acknowledge America as being great. America started at a certain point and grew and came better over time. No country that you know of was 100% perfect at the foundation. No country.
I just want to weigh in here because, first of all, I want to think about how we think about great. Okay. So in baseball, for example, if you strike out 2 out of 3 times, you're considered great. Like seriously, like if you if you have over 300 batting average in the big leagues, that's considered great. The point that I'm making is great is not about your absolute success or failure, but how you are relative to others in your same class or how you are relative to your peers. And so America, by that definition and standard, has always been great because relative to what other countries were doing, America seemed to be ahead of the curve. But if we want to pin it down to a specific time in history when America was great, it's when white men, mark that, make a note of that, white men went to war killing other white men so that they would free their slaves and help to further the initial quest of liberty for all, right? Liberty and justice for all. They didn't achieve it in one fell swoop. They didn't achieve it, obviously, at the nation's inception. But when a war breaks out over that very issue, and one group of white men says, I'm going to kill you if you don't let those people go free, I think that's when America was great. I mean, people were willing to die to instantiate that liberty for black people. So, American Civil War, effectively, that's when they were great. And to further the concept of this is about not what you do in absolute, but what you do relative to your peers and other places. It was Britain and America that basically sparked the entire anti-slavery movement, both in the West and in the world more broadly. As a matter of fact, there's still places in the world where slavery is actually still going on, particularly in the Middle East and other places. In the East in general, there's still a lot of slavery going on. Ask the Uyghur Muslims in China, for example. But We started that. And I heard somebody put it before, we didn't start slavery, but we did end it. Let's continue.
You
No
didn't answer my
country in the
question.
world, no countries in Africa, no countries in Europe, you can name it. Everybody started at a certain point, and it
And everyone owned slaves, not just America. That's not unique to America.
became greater
You
over
didn't
time.
answer my question.
Ever since you've been alive, America has been the greatest it's ever been.
You think so?
100%, brother. You can name somewhere else that's better than America. And why don't you live there?
I'm not sure.
I know you're not sure because they don't exist.
Were they
Show me somewhere else that's as diverse as America. Anywhere.
As
Pick it.
diverse?
That's as diverse.
What does diversity mean if people are
Opportunities
being
for
discriminated
all
against?
people. Show me another country that give opportunities for all people like America
Do you
does.
think we have the same opportunity as everybody else?
The answer to that question is yes. But once again, people tend to vote with their feet. This guy is obviously being intentionally obtuse, pretending not to understand very basic questions or concepts. People risk life, limb to come to the United States. They are willing to undertake such dangerous paths to get here that oftentimes they're literally putting their life at risk. That says that the opportunities here are better than where they're coming from. So that says that this is the place where people would rather be. People don't leave America and go to other places in high numbers. At least net, we take in many more people than we lose. And that in and of itself says that America is great, i.e. better than its alternatives. Let's continue.
As black people?
Yeah, 100%.
With a 200-year economic head start on us and no
What's
reparations?
stopping you now?
So here's the logical fallacy. 200-year head start. First of all, this just communicates an ignorance about how anything is passed along, wealth, knowledge, or anything. Wealth has to be preserved. Customs have to be preserved. Cultures have to be preserved over time. And it's not a seamless process. There are people who start certain cultures and certain traditions and other things that they didn't inherit. This is the whole concept of this is why America is great, for example, because America started in one place and then we moved away from those practices that we deemed were unjust and immoral. But that's not because those people inherited those cultural standards. They decided to make them their own. So I'm not sure what he means by that. I think he thinks every white person has like some trust fund that they can tap into as soon as they're born. It's absurd, but let's continue.
Aren't you at this university?
Yeah.
You're at the university just like all these white people. How's that any different? Can't you?
I want you to go two blocks that way and tell me where they at.
You can read. You can go to class. You can make good grades. I'm hoping that you're making straight A's. How is America stopping you from doing that? And how is it stopping you from being prosperous enough to go down the street and make a difference in your own community? How is America stopping you from doing that?
Why is it my responsibility to make a difference in my community that was sabotaged from the start?
I don't think.
Now, this is where the conversation gets interesting. Let me bring it in close here for a moment. Why is it his responsibility? First of all, it's only ever your responsibility, regardless of what happened, previous or prior. It's only ever your responsibility to make sure that you are prospering and blessed. It's never someone else's responsibility. I've said this. There's a concept that I want to develop, and it's actually a book idea I want to write. When I get the opportunity, or when I make the opportunity, I'm just going to make it happen. But it's called the Black Declaration of Independence, and I established this concept where there's only two kinds of people, effectively, or three, I should say, who are permanently dependent or inherently dependent. That's one is a slave. That's one. That's not a good one. That's not a good situation to be in. Two is a child. Children are inherently dependent and will always be. And the third one is a person who is like an invalid or handicap or something to that effect. So these people just lack the capacity to be dependent. If you do not fall into one of those three categories, then it is your responsibility to make sure that your life outcomes are what you want. It is nobody else's responsibility. And the idea is that you cannot be dependent and independent at the same time. If you are dependent and you are not in one of those three categories, then you're doing it wrong. So he should understand that it is always your responsibility, regardless of the situation that you face. Let's continue.
Let's go back to the
Do
foundation.
you think the CIA planted drugs in our communities?
They didn't make you sell it.
Do you think they?
No. I agree.
Do you think they
I've
burned
read
down
stories of how
black
the CIA,
businesses? Do you know what Black Hollywood is?
Let's go one at a time. I've heard stories that the CIA planted drugs in the inner city communities. Not every black community, but in some. They still don't make you go and sell drugs to your brother, do they? Why are you not selling drugs right now? Because it doesn't make sense for you to do that. You have an opportunity to go to a university, get an education, and make yourself
I wish Brandon would have asked that question and let him answer.
better and make your family better in the next few generations. Nobody's stopping us from doing that. I'm sitting on campus right now, and all these people are listening to me.
You know what's stopping
What's
everybody?
stopping me?
Money.
In America, what's stopping you from making money?
Okay, so this is where I get frustrated because this guy, not only is he ignorant, but he's arrogant. And I appreciate Brandon Tatum keeping his cool here. But let me just explain something. This is where I say this guy is starting to get to being not only disrespectful, but basically he is affirming white supremacy. One of the things that people do not consider is he's sitting here talking about how he can't do X, Y, Z without it apparently being somebody else's responsibility or somebody else is supposed to take the lead for his own prosperity and blessing. I wonder if people don't understand that people in America decided that they would take on and go to war with who was at the time the world's superpower in Great Britain. So the question is, this is the question that people don't. It's almost like you take a company, for example, like Walmart. Walmart is the biggest, retail operation in the world or something to that effect, right? And they're enormous and global. But Walmart used to be a mom and pop. And Kmart used to be bigger than Walmart. It's like people look at the place where people tend to be, or someone is wealthy, or if a nation is prosperous, they act like they were always like that. The question is, if these white people that you are claiming are supposed to be responsible for your prosperity, if they figured out how to overthrow the world's superpower at the time and then become the world's superpower, then explain to me why you aren't affirming white supremacy when you say, well, they can do it, but I can't. They went to war, came over to it doesn't matter how you think they acquired their land. Let's just affirm all the things. They say they stole it from the Indians. Okay, well, the Indians didn't give it to them. I mean, if we're like, even if you want to say that white people are evil, the white people who started this country are evil, nobody gave them anything. They took it. So you're saying that the white people can do that, but you can't. I don't know what a better case for white supremacy would be. White people can figure out how to get to their level of wealth, how to go in, how to outsmart the Indians, how to, do X, Y, Z, enslave black people. And there again, you might say that's evil or whatever, but they figured out, first of all, I just want to disabuse anyone of the idea that the reason why America is prosperous is because of slavery. Every country during that time had slavery. America is not prosperous because of slavery. America is prosperous despite slavery. I mean, if you're going to, the only way you can attribute America's prosperity to slavery is if America was the only country who had slaves. That would have had to have been a unique attribute of America, and it wasn't unique. Slavery was ubiquitous. So Gentlemen like this, they're not really interested in thinking through these things. They just want to assert certain ideas and assert their victimhood because they've been radicalized by a dishonest, quite frankly, progressive wing of the government who wants to put a battery in this guy's back and exploit him for votes and political power. Let's see what Brandon says here.
in America.
What the is not stopping us from making money?
You
What
go
the
to the
fuck do
same
you
university as
mean?
all these white.
What's not stopping us? Um, um, I'll tell you what is stopping him is his ignorance and victimhood and his apparent belief in undying trust in white supremacy. White people can do it, but you can't.
White people. Well, how you got a different?
Exactly.
You said what? Excuse me.
We're in debt.
That's
That's
is
our
your
fault. Pull yourself up by your bootstraps, right?
Okay,
We were never given boots to begin.
White people did it.
with.
Let's start with this. I actually went and graduated from a university, so I'm not a guy that didn't go to college. I had a full scholarship, so I didn't pay for school in my undergrad. Graduate school, I paid for out of my pocket. I did not get a loan. I mean, I did not have to get loan forgiveness or nothing like that. I had $11,000 worth of debt, and I paid it. How is that different than anybody else out here?
Because everybody doesn't have the same opportunity.
I'm black, though. How did I pay my loan off and you can't? Or
Where you from?
wait, I'm from Texas, Fort Worth, Texas, Dunbar High School.
Fort Worth,
right
Texas.
in the hood and stop 6. Right in the hood and stop 6. How did I get to this point if America's against me?
Did everybody in your neighborhood get to that point?
Well,
Okay, so this is what you call moving the goalposts. Did everyone in, I don't know who this person is off on the side talking. Did everyone in your neighborhood get to that point? What does that matter? You see, you know, I remember, because I played basketball in college. There are certain people that would be in practice when we would have to do like conditioning at the end of practice and we have to run sprints. And there are some people who were pretty smart about how they ran sprints because if you showed coach that you could run the sprint, say if he gave you, if they gave you 10 seconds to do a down and back, right? And you did it in 7, then they were going to expect you to do it in 7 all the time. You see, it only takes one time for you to demonstrate that you can do something for everyone to be alerted to the fact that it can be done. You don't have to do it a bunch of times. You just have to do it one time. And then that becomes the standard and the expectation. Everyone where Brandon Tatum is from doesn't have to have the same results as him. All we need is just one example of a person who did it, and then we know it can be done. So then we start to say, well, if he did it and you didn't, then why? Why is that? The ignorant and the excuse maker wants to say, oh, well, that's he just got lucky. That's just an exception. Is that true? You see, I also grew up in the hood, projects, Section 8 housing. I have a graduate degree in data science. Most of the homies that I grew up with, they were selling dope and went to prison. We didn't do that. There's only one difference. There's one major difference between me and those other people is that my brother, first of all, my brother, both have master's degrees. My sister is married to a pastor. She is a cosmetology instructor. The difference in our house was primarily started with the choices that my mother made as a person who taught us about God and taught us godly principles. And then we internalize those godly principles and we manifest those choices so that our life became manifestly better than the ones we grew up with. But we weren't out there selling dope. And my sister wasn't out there getting pregnant. The other girls were doing that and the other guys were doing that. We didn't get lucky. We did different things. And this is what ignorant black people like this young fella, this is what he refuses to see. Let's listen.
different choices. There's a lot of people in my
Where your
neighborhood that
childhood
made it out
friends at?
because they made better choices. I could have sold drugs. I didn't. Why?
What do you-
Because I wanted something better out of my life.
What do you say about the disproportionate wealth? Is that
Okay.
does that not matter?
It's about culture. How much money do you save?
I don't know. I'm in debt, bro.
You in debt. How much do you invest?
I don't know.
How did you get into debt? Who chose to come here?
Me.
Well, that's you laid it out. Now, when you come here, for every college student here, This should be an investment into your future.
Right.
Anybody that know anything about making money knows that you have to invest to get to the next step.
How are we
You may
supposed to know
listen. You
anything
may
about
be in
making
debt.
money?
You may be in debt to make an investment to get to the next step. So if you do this properly, this is a debt investment to make more money in the future. If you come here and clown around and take a major that won't put you anywhere, then you just got into debt for no doggone reason. It's a cultural thing. Black people in America don't have wealth like others because they choose not to generate wealth through investments and passing their money down.
Who's teaching us to do this?
Okay. So this is where I'll stop it. This kind of goes on. He kind of gets more condescending and disrespectful. I encourage you to watch the entire video, but this is how I'll wrap this up. Who's teaching us to do this? See, once again, let me give you an analogy. Let's say you inherit a piece of land, and on this land is a huge boulder that is in the way. So now you can't develop the land. Like you can't build on it. You can't put a house on it. Two scenarios. First scenario, the boulder is there because it's a natural part of the landscape. Okay, so that's the first scenario. Second scenario, the boulder is there because the people who live in that area are intentionally putting obstacles in your way to develop or to prevent the development of the land and to hinder your progress. And the question is, under which circumstance is the boulder more difficult to move? And of course, it's a trick question because the boulder has to be moved either way. The reason why you have obstacles are really not the issue. The issue is, how do you face those obstacles and do you see them as they are? Because racism and whatever the situation, whatever social ills you feel like are holding you back, those are not going to be the only challenges in your life. Like, it's like the only challenges that people face are that of a racial nature. And what Brandon Tatum is saying here is actually true, because if you think about Indian Asians, for example, they come over here. Indian Asians have the highest income in the United States. They come over here, they get their education, they go into tech jobs, they go into the sciences, the hard sciences, engineering, computer science, the medical field. They come here and they clean up. And then the other thing they do is they buy hotels, right? Indian Asians, they got hotels, 7-Elevens. You laugh at them, but they drive a Mercedes when you're behind us on the bus. What are they doing? Did white people teach them how to do that? Did America teach them how to do that? No. They figured that out on their own. You know why? Because they are capable human beings, able to problem solve and able to see other things besides race and other social ills. They don't look at America as a place where there are obstacles placed in front of them because they're not white. They look at America as a place of opportunity because where they come from is really, really difficult, because India is no America. China is no America, right? Everyone in Asia knows that if you really want to get it, this is where you want to be, in the United States. And they come in here and they clean up and they clean our clock while black people sitting there looking crazy and asking, why isn't the white man doing more for us, when we should be asking, how can we solve these problems? I'll give you one more story here because I think this is important. I worked at a company called Warner Trucking several years ago. It was my first job as a data scientist when I started going to graduate school and started learning data science. And I learned an interesting story about the history of Warner Trucking, where the founder of Warner Trucking, this was during the time when trucking started to grow as an industry, because prior to that, it was railroad that was the primary means of commercial transport. And this is actually quite typical of many big industries. Whenever there's someone in control of an industry, they want to put basically barriers in front of competitors and people who would eat away at their market share. And so it is believed that many of those in the railway industry basically colluded with the government to come up with a Department of Transportation such that if you were going to carry commercial goods across state lines, you had to be licensed. You had to be licensed in all these states where you carry these goods. And for the railroads, this was not a big deal. They had enough capital and enough, kind of cachet to absorb the administrative costs and the red tape of doing that. But for the mom and pop startup trucker, this would be an administrative and financial barrier, and it would make them uncompetitive. So this was the situation Mr. Warner found himself in when he was a young man starting Warner Trucking, which is now a company that's probably worth $3-4 billion, publicly traded on the NASDAQ. He started it with one truck when he was 20 years old. So Mr. Warner had an interesting solution to this. He had an interesting approach to this. He said, apparently they're putting these barriers in front of us because they know it's going to hurt the little mom and pop trucker. But he said, if I transport somebody else's goods across state lines, I have to be licensed in those states, and that's going to be a headache. He said, but if I buy the freight, then while I am transporting it, then it's my stuff. And in that way, I can take it anywhere I want. And then if I just sell it back to the person who wants the freight, then add a quick markup for my shipping costs, then I've completely subverted the intention of the law that required you to be licensed in any state that you transported goods to. So by simple problem solving and ingenuity, he completely subverted the intention of that barrier. And I can think of many, many commercial stories that are like this. You see, other people face obstacles as well, but instead of making excuses, they figure out ways to get around those obstacles because, like I said, racial and societal obstacles are not the only ones that are in your way. And Mr. Warner now is a multi-billionaire, is a billionaire, I'm sure. Or I don't know what his net worth is, but I tell you, he got more money than us. Because he didn't use the excuse of, oh man, the railroads, man, they oppressing us, man, they putting these obstacles in our way. He figured out a way, and now the rest is history. And it is high time for Black people to do the same. Let me know in the comments what you think. Leave a like, share, and subscribe if you like this content. And until next time, my friends, God bless you.